And elsewhere, Indonesia has been admitted as a full member of the Brics bloc of developing economies. The Brazilian government says Indonesia, which has the largest population and economy in Southeast Asia, shares with other members a commitment to reforming global governance through positive contributions to deepening South-South cooperation. Turkey, Azerbaijan and Malaysia have formally applied to become members of a few others which have now expressed interests. Before Indonesia's membership, the bloc accounted for nearly 45% of the world's population and 35% of global gross domestic product. BRICS was formed by Brazil, Russia, India and China in 2009, and South Africa was added in 2010. Last year, the alliance expanded to embrace Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia and the United Arab Emirates. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson says China welcomes Indonesia's full membership of BRICS. Let's talk more about BRICS. Joining me from Belgium is a global affairs analyst, Collins Nweke. Mr. Nweke, thanks for joining us on the news this hour. BRICS is increasingly viewed as a counterweight to the West. It has at the center of its many agenda the dollarization of international trade, which is a key goal. What do you make of the addition of Indonesia in the light of this goal?
Thank you, Nifemi, for having me, and Happy New Year. Well, what does this mean? This means that BRICS, continue to, cause a stir around the world, particularly in the Western Hemisphere. Now, with Indonesia, the largest population in that region, and the global share of BRICS in global population has only just risen. Before today, when before they joined, I mean, like you mentioned, the population stood at about 45% of global share of the population, and then in terms of GDP, around 35% measured from the perspective of purchasing power parity. So this is not something that you can ignore. Now we know how much shivers it is sending because President Trump himself, as part of his election campaign to be president of the United States, actually singled them out to say that he's going to punish them if they ever try to, give America a run for its money through the dollarization that you mentioned. But you see, BRICS is only getting much more relevant, and therefore sending strategies around the world, particularly those in the Western Hemisphere, the global corporations and the financial markets, a bit worried.
We'll talk more about Trump's threat shortly, but do you agree with those who say this new move by Indonesia proves that it's becoming increasingly active in global issues, and that perhaps it's one country to watch when it comes to multilateral cooperation to create a global structure for more inclusive and fair engagement?
There is absolutely no doubt about that, Nifemi. And what have we noticed in the last decade, increasingly, in the past 4 or 5 years? What we have noticed is that Indonesia has become much more consistent and audacious in its foreign policy. What it has done essentially is identifying its national interests and, also identifying the domestic challenges that they have, and they are using a very well-crafted strategic foreign policy to pursue their national strategic agenda, and then, their entry into BRICS is one of such building blocks that Indonesia is using to increase not only its relevance, but also its, purchasing power within the global economy. So there is absolutely no doubt that, Indonesia, has become much more consequential not only in that region, but as a global player, and they have done that, with a very, very consistent and well thought out foreign policy and trade policy as well.
You talked about U.S. President-elect Trump's threat earlier. He has threatened 100% tariff on Brics nations if they replace the dollar in international trade. Some have said it will be an economic disaster if we see, the trade battle extend beyond China to these other countries. Do you think there's a way this can be avoided?
Well, it's got to be avoided. And one can only hope that it is basically one of those, threats that Donald Trump, issues out, and then leaves his advisors to, begin to sort them out. Now, are we going to be very surprised if indeed he makes through on that threat? No, we're not going to be surprised because we have seen him, do similar things in the past. But the point is very clear, Nifemi. It is not going to go without a repercussion, for America. Now, let us not forget the, 1930, Great Depression. Let us not forget the tariff war, that emanated out of, the policies that were taken at the time. Now, nobody's a schoolboy here anymore. What nations need is for you to make a convincing case about why you mean something to them and what value you add to their economy through your foreign policy, through your trade policy. So economic diplomacy, has gotten so sophisticated now that even the smallest country in the world has its own leverage. And so, President-elect Trump actually issuing threats, I think it's a joke. It's a joke because, it's not going to get away with, such, tariff hikes, that doesn't affect the United States.
All right. I'm wondering where you see Nigeria aligning in all of these regional alignment, but we'll talk about that much more later. Collins Awake live for us from Belgium. Thank you so much for your thoughts.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Nifem, for having me.